for those that are welcome, for those that are here, welcome. My name is Yannick. I work as recruiter for Computer Futures with a focus on everything related to data. So going from data engineers to data scientists, artificial intelligence. For those that don't know Computer Futures, we are a recruitment agency and we work specifically on the freelance market in niches, mine being big data. Now, the reason why we're doing this is probably, you know, recruiters mainly as the annoying people with their unexpected phone calls at the not best times, irrelevant emails. I think everybody had those moments. Now, I'm trying to be a bit different in this case and work with an own community. A few years ago, we started this actually with our own webinars now during the COVID phase and meetups. And we noticed as a recruiter, we talk with a lot of interesting people who work with new technologies, can be at startups, can be at larger companies. And they all make pretty cool products, are busy with interesting projects, but the knowledge often stays with them or with us. And we're trying to give those people a platform to talk about their passion, talk about the new things that they've learned and the interesting things they've done. Now, this way in the community, everyone can learn from each other. And especially, I think, in the data domain, it comes as a blessing that knowledge will be shared. But eventually, you're not here to talk, to hear me talk about Computer Futures or my vision on it. So I'll give the word to Peter. He's the first of many webinars that we'll organize again. So Pete, when you're ready, I'll be glad to kick off the presentation.
Right, great. Just to confirm that everybody can actually hear me. I'm assuming they can. Can you hear me okay? Great. Yeah, perfect. All right. So just a little bit about the agenda. What I saw as an agenda today is just to give some kind of an introduction about AI and BI and data and so forth, and then going into a bit about digital transformation, how you can start and what types of data architecture and tooling you might consider using. Then I'll talk a little bit about skills, the types of skills that are needed in a data team. So a bit about me. I've had quite a bit of experience in data over the last number of years, not only as a data scientist who is, we're looking at the data and actually analyzing the data itself, but also when it comes to producing dashboards and project management around data. So managing teams that are busy with producing data-related assets like dashboards and so forth. So in my background, I spent a lot of time at Estee Lauder where I did a lot of analysis around time, writing, and then some projects in relation to optimization. I worked in Argenta where I was involved with setting up the actual architecture for collecting data and storing that data for use in dashboards. I did some work in Galapagos where I was leading a team to produce dashboards based on data that was collected and also to help with the actual identification of the data that was needed for those dashboards. And then I had some smaller clients where I did some relatively focused projects regarding how to best use the data that they have to make savings in different specific aspects. So a lot of those aspects were related to how they can better or improve their processes around creating price offers and making estimations so that they can provide credible estimations and credible timelines to their customers. And from an interest perspective, I'm very interested in how blockchain technology will be used in the future relating to data and also the machine learning and predictive analysis side of data. So why we're here then is to have a look at these different aspects. And one of the things in relation to data is that, you know, you've got your artificial intelligence, you've got your business intelligence, and a lot of people mix up everything and they're talking about all these different data concepts. But in actual fact, the way I see it, and I know that a lot of people have very different views on themselves on how they interpret it, but generally data science to me incorporates all of these things. It incorporates the artificial intelligence, it incorporates business intelligence, but regarding tools and so forth, which we'll talk about later, even things like Excel, you're collecting a lot of data, and that data can be used to create information. And essentially, that's what data science is all about, creating information that will add value to your customers or to your business. So this business, from a business perspective, then data transformation helps to enable AI, and then it essentially creates value for the business itself, but also for the customers. One of the things I'll say during this, you're welcome to ask questions in via the text or chat functionality, and I'll try to get around to them either during the meeting or directly afterwards. Okay. Then in relation to data management itself, there have been a number of different surveys done around what data management or what level of data management maturity is there in different types of organizations. And there was one done, this one, which was an MIH or MHI survey, which showed that some 63%, so to show the 63, that's the 32 plus the 31, have either poor or fair data management. This is actually a huge percentage of people that are not properly managing their data, and therefore they're losing out on the benefits that their data can actually give them. There was a survey done then in relation to McKinsey, or by McKinsey, in relation to different industries. And here you can see some of the various different benefits that data and eventually AI can give a business. So you're talking about, on the left-hand side, you're talking about reducing costs. And the way you have to read this is the black kind of gives the percentage of companies that reduce their costs by less than 10%. The dark blue is by between 10 and 19%. 13% of companies had a saving between 10 and 19%, and 4% of companies had a saving of greater than 20% in relation to marketing and sales. But if you look down further and you look at the different savings, you can see that manufacturing had a huge percentage saving on costs. On the other side, when you talk about revenue increases, you can see that data leading again to AI can have major benefits on the revenue as well. So 40% of companies had an increase of just under 5%, but then you had 40% of companies that had an increase of over 5%. So again, in relation to marketing. So you can see for your own industries in the audience, you can see, get some idea of the types of benefits you have when you introduce some kind of AI strategy or data strategy into your company. So then there are different challenges that companies have regarding implementing any kind of data project. So first of all, there's an internal resistance. People by nature are afraid of new things. So you will have some companies that of course are very open, and some cultures that are open to newness and open to different ways of doing things. But many people have this fear. You also have to think of the problem of strategy, where a company doesn't have a specific strategy relating to digitalization or data management or anything relating to data, or some kind of vision relating to data. You also have an issue regarding talent, finding the right talent, the right people who can actually perform the tasks that are needed to get you digitalized. The organization itself can be inflexible. You need, in today's world, an organization needs to be flexible to allow changes and to account for changes in industry, in the cultural environment. And as we've seen recently with COVID, organizations have had to change. They had no choice to change into, for example, home working where possible, trying to do things via Zoom and so forth. And then there's the problem of a lack of investments. So one of the issues, and we'll talk about that in a second, one of the issues relating to this is that companies tend to underestimate what they actually need to implement some kind of a data program in their company. So when it comes to the solutions, we say for internal resistance, it's very important then to have things like management buy-in. Management must be on board. They're the ones that essentially hold the budget. They're the ones that will essentially have to sponsor any data-related project. When it comes to communications, you need to make sure that you communicate transparently and openly with the various different employees and members of the organization at all different levels to ensure that they understand what's happening and to ensure that they understand the impact on them. They will also perhaps need to upskill or change their skills, and that can be difficult for some people. It needs to become part of the company. So when you're actually making these changes, you need to actually realize that this is not something that you can just click your fingers and suddenly have a data program in place. You need to actually see it as a marathon, something that can evolve over time. It has to evolve and it has to grow. People have to accept it and you have to get the benefits, and the benefits will come in bits and pieces in different areas. But you need to give it the chance. So people need to look at it as a marathon rather than a sprint. For the actual talent then itself, trying to find the right talent, you need to partner with the right company and consultants with the experience in a particular area. It's one thing to say, yeah, we're going to upskill some people internally in order to create this or do this job. But the problem may be that even though they might be skilled in it technically, they may not have the experience that is necessary to really help. So sometimes it's better to get somebody in from outside who has the experience and is ready to hit the ground running. And then you might, for example, put somebody internal beside them in order to learn and develop themselves to move forward. But it's really important to try not to lose time by upskilling people, which may or may not work. And anecdotally, I've heard from some companies that doesn't work. And what happens is after 6 or 9 months, they've tried to train somebody to perform a role like this relating to data, and it just hasn't worked out properly. So they end up going to the market anyway. And in the meantime, they've lost 6, 9 months, maybe even a year. The organization itself then needs to be flexible from a cultural perspective. You need to try to organize or to ensure that the organization can deal with change and has a way of dealing with change as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. And then, of course, as I said, you need to, it's similar to the first one, you need to make sure that management is on board in order to make sure that they invest in this and that they monitor, identify and monitor the right KPIs. It's very easy to pick KPIs out of the air, but you need to really pick the right KPIs. And one of the challenges, which will come in the next slide, one of the challenges is that the KPIs in some cases are more intangible benefits rather than tangible benefits. So from a tool set and integration is another challenge. So it's in the background. It doesn't necessarily, it directly impacts data, but it's something that's kind of seen in the background. Everybody has, or all companies have some setup regarding servers or cloud storage. They have PCs, they have various different networks in their landscape. They have communications needs like Wi-Fi and so forth, and cable needs, but they need to consider that. They need to consider their storage capability. And as I mentioned, the benefits can be intangible. So in many cases, when you're talking about implementing BI or AI or any kind of data solutions, the benefits are that the people, the employees can actually get to their data or to the data that they need faster. So the question is, how do you measure that? So when it comes to the tool set, you need to consider the end-to-end picture. You need to look at your actual physical hardware and your physical landscape to see if it's up to the job that you need. You need to consider the communications regarding Wi-Fi and cable network connections and so forth externally. You need to consider how you're going to do your storage. Is it going to be cloud, or is it going to be some kind of internal server or some kind of hybrid of the two? And then, as I mentioned about the benefits, you need to really consider how you're going to cope with the tangible and intangible benefits and how you're going to set up the right KPIs. So digital transformation itself is made up of various different components. So on one hand, you have the environment. Then you also have the people. So the people on both sides, both the customer side and also on the internal company side. Then you have the, Then you have the things. So here, things is referring to anything related where data is coming from. So it can be items that are in the Internet of Things, or it can be software systems, or it can be all kinds of interfaces from external systems or suppliers. And then you've got to look at your platform, the actual landscape, your actual setup. And once you've got all these, then you can start doing things like analytics on the data you have. And eventually you can lead to artificial intelligence, where you're taking that data and you're using it to actually produce information and do predictive models. So the analytics itself is really looking at the data you have. Part of it is taking the data you have and just understanding that data and understanding what the impacts are of different decisions in your business and what types of decisions will be beneficial for your business. And then when it comes to the artificial intelligence side of things, you're really trying to do predictive analysis and what if analysis, and taking that data and predicting on the basis of that data, if we take certain decisions, what will the impact be on the business? And through running different types of simulations and so forth, you can come up with good estimations of the right decisions. So essentially all these things are then interconnected, and it comes to quite a complex, or what can be a very complex environment. So many companies then, when they realize the complexity involved, their first reaction is then to consider, well, okay, how can I actually deal with this? Like, where do I start? And of course, every company will have a different place when it comes to starting. Some companies will have already got data, or they will be already collecting data. They'll be doing some form of analytics on that data. They may be producing dashboards. They may even be attempting some kind of predictive analysis. But every company will be starting from a different starting point. So essentially, the problem is, if you go to a restaurant and you're sitting down at the table and you're waiting to get your dinner, you're looking forward to it. But what would happen if this turns up on your plate? You've got one hell of a problem. So the question is, how do you eat an elephant? And essentially it's the same in relation to dealing with this problem of all this data that is there. We normally, all companies are amassing a huge amount of data that is being stored in databases and in tables everywhere, that some of which, as I said, is being used and a lot of which isn't being used. So the point is, you need to actually look at it in different parts, and you need to break everything down into different chunks. So there is a methodology in place that kind of helps to do this, the CRISP methodology, which is a cross-platform data management methodology, which helps you to identify the different steps in relation to managing your data and essentially producing usable assets, be they dashboards or analyses. I've also put one together where it's a slightly simpler, more linear type of approach, and more applicable in a sort of sprint scenario, where you're looking at taking the data, considering the problem, and then moving towards some kind of solution. But in both cases, the most important thing is, at the very beginning, you need to work as data scientists or a project manager of data scientists or data science projects. You need to work with the business to understand exactly what it is they're looking for and what their problem is, because you can only tailor your data solution to a problem. And this is probably one of the most difficult things to realize and understand that the business really needs to define their problem as best as possible. And then you need to go through the different steps of leveraging the information you have, evaluating that information for completeness, verifying that you have all the information and that you can get it on a regular basis. And then you're doing an enaction of the actual creating the actual dashboards or the actual analyses. But one of the surprising aspects of this, when I've been speaking to various different partners, is that the actual execution of a data project and the execution of dashboards, etc., comes towards the end of the process. And they're surprised at the idea that there's so much time spent in actually gathering the data, understanding the problem, understanding how the data can be used to solve that problem. And this is something that surprises them. Plus, what also surprises them is the amount of time they have to put into it to actually confirm, yes, this is what we're looking for, or no, this is not what we're looking for. And then you're in the kind of sprint type scenario where you're going back and you're redefining the problem, or you're updating the problem, and then you're creating, or you're finding more leverage, and you're creating updates to the assets. But this is where the sprint methodology comes in very useful. I don't know if there are any questions so far. But just keep an eye on the chat.
We have a question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if you're able to see them as well.
The Q&A, actually, I should be able to see the Q&A.
Otherwise,
yeah. So, sure, this Powell. So at Galapagos, they're using an AWS database, so cloud database. So they're taking in the data. They've got AWS is essentially the storage. So they store the data in their S3 environment, and then they move that data through into a data warehouse type environment and a data lake type environment. And then they essentially are using Tableau, Click at the moment to create their dashboards. There's some Tableau, I believe, being used in some parts of the organization, but Click is the main tool. And I'm curious, farm companies in Belgium go for open source tools like Shiny. Yeah, open source. I'm going to talk a little bit about open source in a bit as well. But open source tools, I think are used in some places. We use some open source in Argenta. MySQL, for example, and Pentaho, and that was in the marketing environment. But I'm not sure what they're using now, and I know they were reviewing all of that, so I'm not up to date on what they were using. And Tableau, I think, is one of the main tools that is used. What I've seen in a number of companies is they're using a combination of different tools. So they're using things like Tableau, Power BI, and Click, and they're trying to work out what the best is for them. And especially when it comes to things like a self-service model. Okay.
You see the, I answered on one question as well, but it's a question from Pavel as well. You see that he answered.
Yeah, he creates his first analysis regarding the current market needs. Can everybody see these questions or not?
Normally, I think only the answered, they don't see them.
Okay, so a scenario where there's new data scientists coming to a non-digitized company. He creates his first analysis regarding the current market needs and presents it to the board of business managers who know each other pretty well for months and years, and they're used to make decisions. How does the new analyst get understood and trusted in the situations? Business might resist from believing the presented data, but still act on their common sense. Yeah, so this is a question, an interesting question. My suggestion is that we talk about it in detail later, because that kind of comes back to the management and sponsorship. Basically, there's a certain amount of belief needed at the beginning. It's very difficult to predict the benefits for managers up front. And there are lots of questions on this by different people at different times. And that's where you need to understand the problem at the beginning of a project in order to be able to provide an answer as quickly as possible. And it's only really when they define the project or problem and go through and get the first attempt at an answer that they start to understand the process and start to see the benefits. And then they increase their requests and their demands on the analysts and the data scientists. I hope that at least partially answers the question. Okay, so I'll continue. So the question is the company itself. So when you're dealing with data, the company itself needs to understand that data really needs to be part of their vision and their mission and their strategy. They really need to understand that it has to be become part of the DNA of the company itself. Management needs to understand that they need to invest and make budget available. There will be an employee impact. So this is where the communications part needs to be very clear and very transparent for the employees about what the impacts might be. And they need to ensure there's budget available, as I mentioned. And from an organizational needs, you need to ensure the infrastructure in place, the resources are in place, and the tools are available. The last line about avoiding technical debt is to ensure that when you make a decision, that you've really thought through end to end, not only what the best tool or the best decision is now, but to try to understand what the situation will be in a year, 2 years, or 5 years, in order to make sure that you don't create a technical debt whereby you have to go back and redo work because a particular tool you've chosen a year ago isn't up to the job now because it hasn't been scalable, for example. So it's really important to make those considerations at the beginning. So first step is to start with a roadmap where you actually understand where you want to go and you understand the different steps on that road, and you put in different pointers on that road or different points in that road where you want to measure the success to that point. So you need to invest in somebody who can do that, a knowledgeable manager, BI manager, or data manager or AI manager, whatever you want to call them, somebody who can deal with the people on the technical side and the people on the business side to make sure that the goals are somehow merged into a good roadmap for the company. Then you need to define what is needed. You need to define the risks and understand the risks involved. You need to set the different goals and create, maybe identify KPIs that are ambitious but realistic, but also take into account the intangible benefits as well as the tangible benefits. An intangible benefit being, for example, how long does it take for a manager to find the report that they need or to find the data that they need at a particular point in time. And then there needs to be some kind of a budgeting of the actual solution, and you need to be prepared for setbacks and failures. But in the case of failures, it's important to remember one Thomas Edison quote where he said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." I'm not saying that you're going to have to do 10,000 iterations of a dashboard before you get the right dashboard, but I do believe that you need to consider that you will spend time creating dashboards or analyses that don't quite give the answer you need. And this is, again, where you're always dealing with that communications problem where the bridge between the technical people and the business people is not 100% perfect. So this is, again, where the project manager can come in and help to ensure that that difference in understanding of what is needed from the business side and what is needed to be done on the technical side, it's really important that person can communicate with both teams effectively to produce the right thing. And that's where the communication, why the actual execution of a dashboard or execution of some kind of analysis really is later in the process. So then when it comes to the type of team you need and the type of people you would need in such a team is a manager, somebody who can actually understand and form this bridge between the business and the technical side, a data architect who can actually design the databases in the way that are needed for that company and for that company's needs, but also taking into account scalability, that the data platform can be expanded in the right way. a data engineer to create the different data movements that are needed to go from one location to another, either the ingestion side of things or through different kind of areas where you're expanding data and you're redefining how the data should be analyzed so that you can then use that in dashboards and so forth. A full stack developer is useful because they have the knowledge of taking all this information from start to end. A business analyst would work in conjunction with the manager in order to make sure that the business and the technical people understand what is required. And then you need visualization experts. These are the ones who will go in and actually create the dashboards or graphics that are needed to give the message that solves a particular problem. Other people then that are involved but may not be directly involved in a project are people like the CIO and the CEO. This is where it has to be part of their vision and their strategy. You've got the PMO then and the portfolio managers who are involved with making sure that the projects have budgets, so they need to understand what or how the budget is made up for a particular project, data project, and why it costs a certain amount. So the justification needs to be there. And again, this is where the manager, the BI manager, has to be able to say, this is what we're trying to achieve. The infrastructure people need to be involved to make sure that everything is in place from an infrastructure perspective. Security is, of course, vital. We need to be sure that all the data is secure and that only the right people see the specific data that they need to see and no more. And then you need tooling experts to make sure that we have the different combinations of tools that are needed. Before I go into the data architecture and tooling, are there any more questions that have come up? No.
I don't believe there are, unless people have questions right now, but there are no questions in Q&A.
Great. So one of the areas when it comes to data architecture and tooling is the following. So I don't know about the people on the call, but this looks similar to what my toolbox looks like out in the shed at the back of my garden. It's a mix of all different things that I've collected over the years to do different pieces of work around the house. Naturally, it's a mess. And unfortunately, in organizations, you also have a tool situation where you have bits and pieces of everything. You have different people trying out different things, and you essentially have tools that aren't always the most integrated. Yet, the organizational management then still would want you to produce something like a Ferrari engine. But that, of course, is not always straightforward. And this is where the tooling aspect of or the tooling decisions are really, really important. You need to make sure that whatever tools you are going to choose to do your data management and leading to BI and AI type solutions, that these tools are properly integrated. So tooling is really, really important, and it's really important to consider that at the beginning of the project of how you're going to deal with that problem. So then when it comes to the actual processing itself and how you're actually dealing it, you have various different, I'm just going to check to see if okay, so I'm not sure if you can see the pointer. No, I don't think so. Okay, not to worry. So you have basically, you have the situation where you have various different inputs. You have databases and you have other data, and you essentially want to go through a number of different steps to get that information to a status where you can present some kind of a dashboard. So you need to do some kind of ingestion where you're taking a look at the data and you're making sure that it's a good quality. You have a staging area where you're putting the data in some kind of temporary database for future use. You have a transformation of that data into a format that you need to use. Again, you have a second storage, which might be something like a data warehouse or a data lake. And then you may create views on this data then that can be used in dashboards or various reports or for various analytics purposes. So if we go to each of the steps individually, so here we have, for ingestion, you basically have things like the quality assessment of the data coming in. There's some form of data cleaning. You're checking the types of the data to make sure that it's consistent with what you're expecting. You're getting rid of duplicates. You're checking any metadata. You're doing some kind of quick load into the staging area, or you're preparing the data for some kind of quick load into the staging area. And then you're doing some kind of visualization on that data. And you're essentially you're preparing that data to do some kind of initial kind of data exploration. And in order to do this ingestion, you have various different tools that can be used. So Python is probably the tool that most data scientists use. You have Kafka, NiFi, Pentaho, Talent, and you have AWS to help get the data in. When it comes to the actual staging area then, you have, this is where you would actually perform any kind of exploratory analysis on the data. So before you would go to a situation where you're doing creating your actual views and trying to solve a particular problem, you're exploring the data to see if you have sufficient data, if the data gives some initial findings. There can be all kinds of different analysis you'll do on the data to help you understand the data more and to understand if there are any gaps in the data you need. Then you would categorize the data, you would make some kind of initial selection of the data, and you would end up storing that data in some kind of a database. So here we've got different tools that might be used. So you've got Azure, you've got AWS, you've got Oracle, you've got IBM, you've got Google, you've got Snowflake. There are many different options there. And of course, yeah, you may have some internal databases and you may have some parts of your data that you want to keep internally for specific business needs, some core data, core competency needs and privacy needs. The next step then would be where you take that data from the staging area, you've explored it, you've taken some initial analyses, and now you know what data you're going to need. So you may need to transform that data into data that you will need to go forward to create actual views. So this might be then where you also start deriving extra data from the data you have, where you're looking at different interdependencies and creating new fields and new data components that you can use in your analysis. And then this data then, once it's transformed, it can be used further. And again, you've got the tools, some of which I've mentioned earlier, I think all of which I've mentioned earlier, that can be used for this. And there are many more tools out there, both open source and proprietary. Sorry. And then when it comes to storage, you basically, once you've transformed the data, you're basically storing it in the selected storage area. So this is of course important because your storage has to be scalable and it has to be accessible, and there needs to be some good speed. So you really need to take care of choosing the right platform and the right landscape for your business at early on in the process. And then once you've stored the data and you've got it in the right format and you've got all your derived data, you could then create views. And again, it depends on your organization and what your organization strategy is as to where and how you're going to store those views for use later. But some examples are MySQL, you have SQL Server, you have various different examples. But then you come to the situation where you would start doing your visualizations. And these could be either dashboards and reports, or you might have some kind of analytics. Of course, the more popular ones or the more well-known ones regarding analytics are Power BI, Click, and Tableau. But for some small companies who don't want to make the investment in these big tools, something like Excel might still be sufficient. So it's important that businesses realize, and even small businesses realize, that they don't need to spend a fortune on major tools when they may already have a Microsoft Office scenario in place that will allow them to use Excel and Power BI, for example. But essentially, it's something that needs to be considered. And of course, one of the main things is to consider data security. So you need to make sure that around all of this, that you've got sufficient data security, that your data is protected so that only those people that need to see it can see it, and that the reports, the data contained in the reports can only be seen by the right people. So this is where security really, the security team in your organization really can help determine how you do this, and your data architect can help design the data in such a way that matches up with the security requirements. Just checking, no more questions, okay? So essentially we've taken a look at the AI and BI side of things. We've taken a look at digital transformation in general, process that you can go through to get the to a result, the various tools that you need to actually pull everything together, and then where this creates value. And that is where I end. So I'm hoping people could follow this. I see Yannick smiling. I don't see anybody else smiling, but I don't know, are there any questions on this, or any questions at the moment? So it's open to the floor at this point.
I think for the things I understood was clear. Most likely I'm the least, I'm the one with the least knowledge of everything BI or data related. But definitely if you can't or not able to speak up, you can ask your questions via chat, or if there are some tips and tricks that you definitely will take along to your working environment, feel free to share that as well. I think it's for me and for Peter good to see in this useful information. So
to get the ball rolling, I have a question for the people in the group. Why did people join this webinar? What was your main reason for joining the webinar? Just you can answer in the chat. Is it that, for example, your company is going through a data project at the moment, and maybe you're just looking for extra ideas, or maybe your business hasn't started doing it yet? I don't see anything coming up in the chat yet. I'm just checking.
No, same.
Is your curiosity? Okay. Ah, yeah, fair enough. That's a fair reason. And what was your thought on that, Paul? I think you can also turn on your microphone. Is that possible? Can they?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, you can't. All right. Okay, but how did you find it, Paul? Was the format okay?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, hello. It's good that you can hear me. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. No, I just I was messaged by Yannick, and I found this webinar, yeah, pretty well organized. Maybe not the most informative for me, because I'm already in the field for around maybe 3 years since I'm getting an interest of data science, but I will definitely check also the other webinars, and I wish you, of course, good luck with them. For the moment, I don't have any specific questions, but I was just also curious, what kind of that's a question out of the context, but what kind of software and background did you use to place yourself in the corner? I really like this layout.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, indeed. And okay, I suppose from my perspective personally, I've been learning Python now for the last while, but in the past I've used a lot of SQL, for example, and I've done a lot of stuff in Excel and VBA and some Power BI. for visualizations, and I've used databases like MySQL and AWS and Azure.
Yeah, thank you. But I was actually also trying to understand what kind of software did you use to today for the webinar to actually
For the webinar,
remove the
sure.
background. Yes.
You mean the virtual screen?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. OBS is the name of the software.
Okay.
It's open source.
That. And then to remove the background, you can also use OBS to do that? Or
I use a green screen.
Okay.
I have a green screen behind me, and then you can layer it in OBS. Yeah.
Okay.
People really like your setup, Peter.
That's positive. At least it worked. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. We have two more questions in Q&A as well. I think Didier is asking, what about certifications? What kind of certifications can help companies to trust the experts in doing the job right?
Let me see the actual thing. So certifications, one of the things about certifications, as far as I'm aware, and maybe I'm wrong, there is no specific certification for data scientists. You have various different courses in various different places. I know DataCamp has a very good course for data scientists. And I think at the end of that, you can get a certificate. And I think Udemy has also got one where you can get a certificate at the end. But essentially, these courses focus a lot on Python and so forth. So my suggestion is more reading about data science and understanding the concepts behind it, and then being able to get the concepts. To me, the concepts are important, and when talking to a business and trying to explain to them how data science can help them, it's really important to mold the answer to their actual problem and their needs, because they need to understand how data science can help them. Because if you start talking about data science in general, they're not going to understand it. But if you're able to, if you're able to program in Python, and if you have the concepts, I think that should be enough. Normally, if you're talking to businesses, they will have somebody technical who's already kind of up to date on a lot of these. So they will do discussions and interviews with the data scientists to get some idea about their skills. And then it's a case of, if you're able to program in Python, that's already a huge start, to be honest. And if you understand the concepts. I think what also helps is a background where you have some good concept of mathematics and statistics. In my case, I actually started writing neural networks back in 1990 because I studied mathematics and I was very interested in this whole area way back then. But of course, we didn't have computers that could deal with neural networks at that time. But that's where my interest was. And we didn't call it data science at that time either. We just called everything computers. You know, you were in computers or you were in something else. So it's experience, and it's showing what you've done. It's like creating a portfolio of different things you've done, different types of analysis you've done. And this is what you can use at the moment. And I'm sure in the future, there'll be some kind of certification.
I may interrupt and actually add to this answer, because I'm actually trying to get recruited already for a while. So I see, if you would like to get into data science, for example, definitely understanding Python, SQL, these are the two main technologies that will be asked. I was asked many times about different scenarios regarding over the phone or over the online tests where I should write some Python query or SQL. But talking just about certificates, yes, there are lots of websites. Of course, I recommend from my side Udemy. That's one, DataCamp and Coursera. I would say that DataCamp might have the most interactive ones and really like candy looking like UI. Udemy is great for comprehending a topic quickly. And Coursera, I think it's more based on theory, at least in most of the courses, and they are definitely the most time-taking. but for what I'm considering at the moment is also to get interested into AWS certificates. They have a great university online where you can get through their tracks, I think mostly for free, but when you want to attempt an exam, it costs, I don't remember exactly how much, but maybe around 50 euro for an attempt or more. And maybe that's a certificate that will mean a bit more. If you say that it's from Amazon or AWS, I think it's a bit more credited than Udemy or Coursera or anything else. But like Peter said, portfolios are also great. For example, one company in Belgium asked me, what is my contribution on Kaggle? Because actually the technical recruiter had an account there and he understood that website. So that's why he asked me about it. So definitely portfolio and also projects are great, and understanding the technical topics, but certificates itself, it's not the most important in my opinion.
And what companies, as you say, and that's quite correct, Paul, companies are looking for practical knowledge, like knowledge in implementing something. And you can have all the certificates in the world, but maybe you're not able to do anything. So it's really important that, yes, learn the stuff and by all means do courses that give certificates, but choose those courses carefully. But the most important thing is actually doing things, coming up with projects to make sure that you're learning the types of skills you need to learn in Python, SQL, etc.
Clear. I think do you see the questions as well, Peter? I have quite a few from James.
Here, another. Oh, okay, I was in the wrong tab there. Sorry, it's also my first time using this functionality in Zoom. Okay, to get another perspective about how other businesses are empowered by utilizing data. This is typical. The webinar content was aimed at larger organizations. That was your reason, James, and indeed, I think all organizations can have an advantage to data, regardless of size. And I tried, when I was doing this presentation, I tried to keep it at a reasonable level. So there's some technical stuff in there, but it gives that reasonable side of things where smaller businesses can also get something out of it. So I hope it was a help. If that was your reason for joining, but I hope you actually did get that. Having a view of how SMEs could structure with real cases would be interested to see. That's a good question. My experience of small businesses is they are very difficult to, it's very difficult to get them to take that step, because even when you come to dealing with open source technology and using open source tools, which cost little in themselves, there's still a cost in implementing those tools, because you still may have to pay somebody to implement them, or to upgrade the tools every so often, or to make reconnections for different interfaces or whatever it may be. But I agree with you, it would be a good idea. And I'll try and take a look at that actually at cases. Okay, and then how do you get the challenge over the challenge of existing resources not being data literate, or not really too appreciative of moving into a data-driven culture? Management buy-in helps acceptance, but existing resources capabilities can be limited. This is a big problem, and this is something that I've tackled in a few different places. Basically, we're talking about things like retraining. You're talking about things like helping people understand the benefits. And also the main concern when people do resist is they're afraid that data is going to take over their jobs and they're going to lose their position. And this is not necessarily what will happen. In many cases, or in some cases, people's jobs will change significantly. And there may be instances where people can't train to one of these roles, but maybe they're somewhere else in the organization. But the fact is that you can't allow that to hold back the organization from the reality that data is important. Does that answer your question, James? No problem. So for me, I know we're getting up to the 12:30 mark, but if there are any more questions or if anybody has any other points, please feel free to contact me in LinkedIn. I'm available on LinkedIn or through my website, frequence.com. If you want to have a chat, you can, on the website, there's also a possibility to book 30 minutes online, and then we can always have a Teams call or something. So feel free to do that. Feel free to add me. Feel free to chat.
Perfect.
I don't think there are any more questions. So
I think no, indeed. I would like to thank everyone who attended the first data webinar. Make sure there are 2 more upcoming, one in 28th of October and the other one the 19th of November. Both, again, data related. So be sure to subscribe for them as well. And as Pete mentioned, if you have any questions for him or for me, definitely you know how to find us. And thank you again.
thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.